Hello, my friends, and welcome to Up Close and Personal, a new series where we're going to be exploring some of the most iconic military vehicles of the Second World War and beyond, like you've never seen them before. Now, as a scale modeler, I spend countless hours trying to recreate faithful reproductions of these vehicles in small scale, but today we're going to be getting inside the real deal to try and give the ultimate reference material for scale modelers and military history enthusiasts alike. Today we're kicking things off with the high-speed hitter of the tank destroyer battalions, the M18 Hellcat. All right, my friends, we are here at the American Heritage Museum in Hudson, Massachusetts, one of my all-time favorite places to visit. We're standing in front of their beautifully restored M18 Hellcat here, and I'm joined today by my friend Andrew. He's going to tell us a little bit about what makes this vehicle so special and give us some important things to look for when we go home and try and build up a faithful 1/35th scale reproduction of this tank destroyer. Now, I know that this vehicle first sees action in Italy with U.S. forces in the spring of 1944, but obviously this is a story that gets us to that point. So give us a little context of how we get to this vehicle.
Of course. So the M18 is a purpose-built tank destroyer.
Sure. Yeah.
Entered production in summer of 1943 or so. It was the culmination of several projects that the U.S. had going on, playing around with different concepts for a new tank destroyer, which is, of course, very different from a tank.
Right.
Their tank destroyer doctrine at the time stated that tank destroyers were to be used in defensive response roles, not lunging forward into the enemy lines.
Interesting.
That's a job for the more heavily armored tanks, things like the Sherman and up-armored vehicles.
Yep.
Tank destroyers are generally fairly light armored, have a large caliber gun, and are designed to shoot and scoot, so they need to be light and mobile. This one in particular was, like I said, the culmination of several designs that were being played around with. It was mostly designed to replace the M10 Wolverine.
Right, yes.
Thanks to updates in metallurgy, they were able to keep the same caliber of gun, but increase the length, thus increasing the velocity, giving us a higher caliber 76mm gun on a very mobile platform.
Right, right.
The vehicle only has about a half an inch of armor overall, as well as having a turbocharged radial engine in the rear. It makes it really crank along. It can top out at around 55 miles an hour on the roads.
That's flying for the 40s, right?
It is.
A Sherman, you can get up, I mean, moving on the highway, what, 25, 30 miles an hour, right?
32 or so.
Yeah.
They really aren't moving all that quickly.
Right.
So when you have a vehicle that can top out at around 55 on roads, you can attack the enemy from one side, and before they know what's happening, you're already behind them.
Right.
It was most well showcased at the Battle of Ericourt, where the 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion saw incredible success against tanks like the German Panther and German Tiger tanks.
Wow, okay.
Because of their ability to get into cover, fire, and move so quickly, it disoriented the German crews and overall won the U.S. the battle.
No kidding.
Yeah, so why don't we get around to the side and get a look at the running gear?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Sounds good. All right. All right, my friends, so we're over here on the side of our M18 now, and as you guys know, somebody that spends a lot of time making M4 Sherman variants, I'm used to working with HVSS, VVSS bogies quite a bit. This is not that. So, Andrew, tell us a little bit about the suspension system in this vehicle and what makes this special and why this lends itself really well to a tank destroyer like the M18.
Yeah, so this is called torsion bar suspension, which I'm sure you've dealt with at some point.
Sure,
the M24 chassis uses the same system, M41 Walker Bulldog. A very, very popular system for the time. Contemporary vehicles as well. The Soviets and the Germans were also using torsion bar at the time. Really, the bogie suspension became outdated around the start of the war. It's a very heavy system. It's good for when you have a big, heavy tank.
Just
like
plug it on there,
like
right?
an M4 A3 E2 jumbo or something, where you have a lot of weight that you need to handle. But on a lighter vehicle like this, you want to go with the lightest suspension you can get. Torsion bar does a fantastic job of both being light and providing a really smooth ride. And overall, it's not bad to work on. It's a little more difficult, especially if you were to have a brake in the torsion bar, because everything's buried in the vehicle.
Right.
But its benefits really outweigh any of the cons.
So I know, like looking at this right off the bat here, these have pretty similar rubber-style chevron tracks like you see on a lot of the Sherman makes out there. But when you look at a lot of the model kits from major manufacturers, you see this with the original T69, I believe, metal tracks. So what's going on here? Why does this have the rubber tracks installed instead?
So this was purely changed for our purposes here at the museum. Metal tracks tend to really tear up things like hot blacktop and grassy fields like we use for our reenactments. And so to limit that, we swapped this out for the tracks off the M39 armored utility carrier.
Right, okay, yep.
So essentially this just provides us with a major quality of life improvement.
Sure.
You'll notice that the sprocket is also different from the original Hellcat sprocket.
Right, the original's got a lot of teeth on here. This is a lot more reserved, yep.
Right, so this is the same sprocket that comes off the M39.
Oh, it is, okay.
The Hellcat was never designed to have rubber tracks on it.
Interesting.
So you'll never see a picture of one in service with rubber tracks.
Gotcha.
Because by the time the M39 came into service, the M18 was already decommissioned.
On the way out, yep, yep.
So yeah, this was purely a change made for our ease of use here at the museum. So if you are building a period M18, you definitely want to go with the standard metal tracks.
Interesting. On that note, though, too, because some folks at home might not be aware, that's one of the things that makes this museum so special is a lot of these vehicles still run, and you guys do get them out there on the field behind the property. And this is included, right? This is one of the vehicles that's been out there quite a bit in the past. You can see it's got all the muck on it. Yeah, so you guys, you got to swing back and check this place out. I know I've said it a million times, but it's world-class museum around here. Now, with that said, one last thing before we hop up on top here. I want to talk a little bit, we'll geek out about sand skirts here.
Yeah.
I know that's something you see on a lot of World War II vehicles and beyond. This one has the skirts removed, but what's kind of the story there? Because a lot of times when you see these kits in the pristine condition, they've still got sand skirts on them, but I know crews tend to yank those off pretty quick. So tell us a little bit about that.
That's right. So really, sand skirts were intended to provide a limit to the amount of dust you're kicking up in arid climates or even just in dry conditions.
Sure.
They were factory installed and they tended to really impede the ability to work on tracks, and the thing is they'll bind up if you hit a log or a tree or something.
Just anything, right?
They're made of very thin sheet steel, so they wind up binding up in your sprocket, your tracks, and overall impeding your running gear.
More of a hassle than it's worth, right?
So a lot of times crews would get them and pull them off almost immediately.
Yeah.
So they were really a continuation of a bygone era. You'll see them a lot on interwar tanks and early war tanks.
Interesting.
So by the time we were getting to mid to late war, they really weren't as much of a necessity, especially in places like France.
Sure, we're not kicking up dry dust like that. Yeah.
Right.
So I guess one of those things to consider if you're working on, a kit that's seen some action, usually yank these right off there. Yeah. Okay, cool. So with that said, why don't we hop up top and start getting inside this thing? Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. All right, guys, so we're up on top of the old M18 now, and obviously the first thing that jumps to mind here is no roof, right? This is an open-topped tank destroyer. Why? I guess we'll keep it simple here. Why no armor on the top?
So overall, with a tank destroyer, one of your biggest lifesavers is visibility.
Right.
And while having a roof is great on larger tanks, it's good for things like artillery, shrapnel, enemy action in general. It's better for dealing with the environment. Snow gets to be rough in something like this.
Right.
But the trade-off is that you have a ton more visibility. You can pop out and go anywhere. And everybody has that visibility to them. It's not just a commander out of a hatch. Your loader can be looking in one direction, your commander's looking in another, and your gunner can pop up and be anywhere it needs to be, really. So it's a great trade-off. We'll see it on a lot of tank destroyers throughout the war. Things like the M10.
Of course, yeah. It's just part of that math, right? The decision is that visibility for something that serves this purpose is paramount, right? So we can forego having any kind of lid up top here.
Right.
With that said, though, again, something to pay attention to when we're making models here. We do have the brackets up here for some sort of tarp cover, correct?
Yes.
That's why these are here.
Yep.
And is that the purpose for the center bar as well? Or is that a little bit of both, obviously, maneuvering inside,
It
right?
doubles. It serves a double purpose. But, yeah, that is one thing that I will give to the Hellcat, too, is it has a ton of handles all over the whole thing. Between stowage bars and just handles inside for crew comfort, getting around is not a problem.
Which I'm sure these guys appreciated a lot, right?
Oh, yeah.
On the flip side of that, though, obviously, no roof. You're in, northwestern Europe. It's got to get pretty rough in here in the conditions, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure that was, one of the downsides that these tank destroyer battalions had to deal with, whereas, their buddies in tanks proper, they've got a roof over their heads, right? So, all part of the math there. But with that said, I think, it's probably time we get inside here and check out the fighting compartment, yeah?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. All right, guys, so time for the nitty-gritty here. We're getting inside the fighting compartment, and I am obviously standing in the tank commander, or tank destroyer commander's position here. He's the eyes and the ears of the operation, so to speak, though I know we were just saying that everybody's got a good view here. But primary responsibilities for this guy, obviously, he's running the show. But what else does our TC up here have that he's working for at the moment?
So in terms of hands-on equipment that you have, obviously you have your Browning M250.
Right, yep.
That's the most obvious piece. This is the same 360 turret ring that we'll see on a lot of other vehicles.
Sure.
Things like the M8 Scott and the M8 Greyhound as well.
Right, yep.
Down to your lower left here, that handle underneath the gun mount itself.
This guy, yep.
That's your commander's override.
Okay.
So by cranking that, you can engage hydraulic traverse left or right.
Interesting. Okay.
You'll actually see that if you move it, it's tied directly to the
There's a
hydraulic handle
connection down there. Yep. Okay.
So if you're calling out a target, you can just crank the turret.
And just override literally what our guy in front of us is doing. And we'll hop down there and check out the gunner's position in a moment here. It's a pretty fascinating ring here, but basically just overview-wise, how does this engage? So what do we have to do here? Just because I want to play a little bit while we're here, obviously.
So over on your left, you've got that handle. That's basically just going to unscrew. So you just go lefty-loosey with it. Yep. And she'll loosen up, and that'll allow you to rotate the turret. You're just going to do that by pressing your hips into the
Oh, no kidding. So that's what these are back here for, and that's literally just going to give you the ability to...
And then to unlock elevation, you've got a little spring-loaded bar over here.
This guy?
Yep. So you just pull that out and rotate it 90 degrees.
And that's going to go like that. And then we've got our little, no kidding. So our TC's got something to play with up here, obviously. Now, you know, usually, I think, formally speaking, these guys are for anti-air defense, but I'm sure that this gets plenty of use for soft stuff on the ground as well, right? Yes.
Yeah, that was where they ended up primarily being used overall.
Yep.
With the Luftwaffe being in the shambles that it was.
By the time this arrives,
there weren't a whole lot of aircraft to shoot at.
Okay.
So it saw most of its service against infantry and light targets, machine gun nests, trucks, that kind of thing.
Yep. And on that note, too, and we'll obviously talk about this when we get down to the front positions and to the loader position in a second, or I suppose the gunner's position. This doesn't have a bow machine gun. Does it have a coaxial machine gun?
No.
It does not, right?
That is another thing. So the only machine gun on deck is the 50 cal.
Okay.
Some crews would fashion their own mounts for a Browning 30 cal.
Just give you something up there, right?
But other than that, that's your only quick firing weapon.
And kind of the concept there is, honestly, it's to kind of keep these guys from going overstepping what this vehicle is designed to do, right? Because if you go driving around like a tank, this isn't armored like a tank, you're going to get yourself in some trouble pretty quick here. Interesting. Well, at least you got the trusty Ma Deuce up here, right? So we've got the override, and we've got the 50 up here. Let's hop down inside and try and get a better view of what our gunners got down in front of us here, all right?
Yeah.
Cool. All right, guys, so we're down here inside the turret now. I am sitting in the gunner's position, and I will say right off the bat, pretty cozy down here in the whole scheme of things. You know, we were talking a little bit about this earlier, but I'm, you know, just under 6 foot, so I know I'm a little bigger than these guys would have been back then, yourself as well. But, you know, if you're, you know, slightly smaller, like the average height for, you know, the guys that were fighting in this back in the day, it's a pretty cozy compartment in here.
Yeah,
you got plenty of space.
Yeah.
So I'm in the gunner's position, as mentioned here. What are we working with? So give me a little overview of what I've got in front of me here.
So right dead in front of you, you've got your hydraulic traversal.
Okay.
So turning the handle left turns you left, right turns you right. Very, very intuitive.
And on that note, so this is a fully powered turret as well, right?
Yes.
Which is a departure from what we see with the M10. That's a manual turret, so I'm sure these guys appreciate that. You can whip this thing around pretty quick. And then over here, on that note, this is the manual traverse, you said? Okay, interesting. So that's going to do the same thing for you. Does this actually engage if I...
It does. We'll have to unlock the rotation lock. So just swing that bar.
This guy?
No, right down in there.
Oh, yep.
Yep, swing that right over to the other side.
Okay. Oh, and I just felt something engage. Yep. And then
now, whichever way you turn the handle is which way you're going to turn it.
Oh, and we are actually moving a little bit there. Yep. Oh, it's like magic. Amazing. All right, cool. So that's your manual. That's
May have to turn the handle a little too to get it to engage with a tooth. Usually it'll find a tooth.
There we go. And that's seated right in there.
Yeah.
You can tell I haven't spent a lot of time in these things. The smaller versions, sure. And then down here on our right, which we kind of can't really see with the camera here, but this is our elevation, our manual elevation as well. Okay, interesting. And then in front of us, we've got our options for looking outside of this baby.
Yes.
Regular periscope right here in the front, right? So this manipulates. And then I'm seeing that there's a different optic in here as well. What's going on with that?
So that's a small telescopic optic. That's the same design that you'll see in vehicles like the M4 Sherman.
Okay.
You'll only see that in the gunner's position.
Yeah.
It basically just gives you a rough frame of reference for where your gun's aiming.
Get on what you're looking for.
Right.
Yep. Interesting. And then the main sight here, the telescopic sight, we've got this. That actually gives you a nice picture as well there. Do you know what the zoom is on this off the top of your head?
I want to say it's somewhere around 3.5 times.
Yeah, it gives you a good view of what you're hopefully trying to hit out there, which is impressive as well. And I guess on that note too, the reason for being in here is the 76. Now the Hellcat's armed with the 76 millimeter gun. Departure again from what we see with the 3-inch on the M10 and then the 75 on the Shermans. What's the benefit of this guy? Because this is a tank destroyer, right? So what are we dealing with here?
So overall, due to advances in metallurgy, like we talked about earlier, they were able to go one of two ways when starting with a 3-inch gun. They could either go larger and maintain the same weight, which is where we get our 90 millimeter cannon that we see on tanks like the Pershing and the Jackson. Or they could decrease the weight but maintain the caliber. So this is what we get by decreasing the weight. Is the 76 millimeter M1A1.
Yes, the original. Yep.
So essentially, it has a much longer barrel than the 3-inch had.
Okay.
Higher velocity. The rounds have a lot more powder behind them, so you're putting a lot more gas behind your projectiles. And this could deal with most mid to late war threats. It struggled on things like Panther's frontal armor, but most vehicles did.
Most did, right? Yeah.
But in terms of even Panther's side armor, these could pen them pretty easily.
It's a pretty deadly vehicle when it's handled properly, right?
Yes.
That's no kidding. And then obviously down the road we start seeing this on some of the Shermans itself.
Right.
But for a vehicle that's this light and this fast, this is a big punch, right? This
Yes.
Wow, no kidding. So with that said, I guess kind of getting on the note of what we're actually putting down the tube here, let's swap over so we can get a little bit of a view of the ready rack over there. Right?
Yeah.
Cool. Let's do it. All right, guys, so I'm over here in the loader's position now. Andrew and I did a little swap. He's over in the gunner spot. What am I working with here? Obviously, I got a big old ready rack in front of me, which is pretty nice.
Yes, and it's very conveniently placed, too, is one of the other big things. When hauling around rounds like the 76, not having to pull them out of floorboards all the time is great. Especially when under pressure in combat.
Right, yeah. Like, I'm pretty comfortable over here. I got my back against the turret wall here, and I can get these rounds out. Let me find one that wants to unbuckle there. That comes out pretty nice. Oh my goodness. Yeah, no kidding. So what are we working with here?
Yeah, so there is one of your high explosive rounds.
Okay.
And the one thing with the 76, the high velocity rounds kind of made the HE portion suffer.
Yeah.
But they were still used pretty
extensively. They still did carry them, yeah. Because again, I imagine, that whole expectation of this being a quick hitter in and out isn't always the case, right? I'm sure this gets used for other things as well, as we kind of talked about.
Yeah.
But obviously the main deal is, working with your AP, right? I think this is one of these AP shells, right? Did we talk about that? Yep. Ooh, yes. This is AP, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Which is, to your point, again, just ergonomically, this works pretty well. I can get this out and into the breech without a lot of hassle there. That works well. And yeah, compared to some of the other stuff that we're seeing around here, this is very easy to get to. We've got other racks over here, right, for ammunition for the 50 small arm stuff over here. Other than that, though, what do I have responsibility-wise as the loader over here?
So you do have access to the radio.
Okay.
You would be one of the main operators of the radio.
Sure.
As well as one of the other big things is really for any loader in any armored vehicle is being an extra set of eyes.
Sure, yeah.
Because unless you're in combat, you don't have to be loading things.
Right. And I do have a pretty solid view over here. I've got some protection, obviously.
Yeah.
But this is not a bad seat to be in. I'm pretty impressed, yeah. We got the floor right here. This is good. No basket on this turret, right? So
That's right.
You got to do a little dance when things are traversing, but otherwise, I mean, this is not a bad position either.
Yeah.
Anything else to consider over here as the loader, or should we hop down front and check out the co-driver spots?
I say we'll head down front.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
All right. All right, gang. So we've moved down to the front of this beastie here. I'm sitting over in the co-driver's position. Andrew's over there in the main driver's position here. We're opened up here. We're unbuttoned, obviously. But yeah, again, pretty cozy position here. So tell me what's going on a little bit in this section.
Yeah. So the driver and co-driver seats are almost identical.
Okay.
The only things that the co-driver is missing is the main dashboard.
All right. Yep. I don't have anything down here. We'll check that out in a sec. Yeah.
And you can't quite as easily access the shifter lever, but even that isn't a huge deal because you can still reach it, and it's only an automatic, so you're not going to be dealing with it super often.
And that's a really important point. This is an automatic transmission, which is something considering for World War II. I know some of these vehicles towards the end get them, but you know, that's pretty fantastic for these guys. And again, you know, I don't have, I know we mentioned this before, I don't have a bow machine gun in front of me, so I'm fully responsible for driving as well when you're taking a break, right?
Yeah, so we can, you know, we can split the shifts. That's a big thing.
Yep.
We can also, you know, if I need to sleep and you can drive, or
we could just
vice
swap.
versa. And you're also another crew member when it comes to maintenance. Changing tracks and things is not always the easiest thing to do, especially with only 4 guys. So having the extra crew member is huge.
Definitely helpful. No kidding. So we're obviously sitting here with our, you know, head and shoulders sticking out. How do we drop down inside?
Yeah, so you're gonna pull your body forward just a little.
Okay.
Grab the handle on the right side of your seat.
Got that.
And you'll kind of feel yourself start to sink.
Oh, there we go. Bye, friends. Whoa. And we're down here.
So now we're down to periscope height, so we could close up our hatches.
Yeah. All right. So now we're down inside here. Okay, so pretty cozy. I could take a little nap here. So what do we got to do to button up?
Yeah, so now you've got 2 hatches on the Hellcat. You want to turn your smaller one, which is on the inboard section, inwards. And then we're going to do the same with our larger hatch. It's going to be a bit heavier. Yep. But she'll come down too.
Let's see if we can do this from where I'm sitting. Oh my God. I'm sure that sounds great on the microphone. Comment section. Give me a hard time for this. Let's see what we can do here. Oh, geez. I'm hung up on something here. Let's see. Got a hatch lock. Oh. All right. Now we're down here in the dark.
Yes. So in this Hellcat, we don't have the periscopes mounted in the driver and co-driver positions right now.
Yep.
But ignoring that, it's not too bad operating down in here once you're all the way down.
No, I'm sure, yeah.
Something that you'll notice is our brake levers are somewhat connected. The driver's side has parking brakes as well, or locking brakes.
Yep.
So as I pull back, I can push these levers into place and hook into the toothed, essentially, gear.
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
And then we can just release.
Yeah. And you have the 2 tillers over there. I have the 2 as well.
Yep.
So we've got, effectively, to your point, kind of the same controls in here.
Yep. Yeah, I only have the gas pedal on the floor because obviously we don't need a brake when we have handles.
Right.
And no clutch.
Wow,
so that really simplifies things.
It is, yeah.
Interestingly, too, we do also have the roof-mounted tillers as opposed to something like the Sherman, which would have tillers on the floor.
Yeah.
This is more reminiscent of things like the Stewart. Stewart also has high-mounted tiller handles.
Yeah.
But yeah, really, it's not a bad place to not a bad place to operate from.
No, that ain't bad at all. I mean, it's pretty cozy in here. It's tight, but you know, not bad in the whole scheme of things.
Yeah.
No kidding. Well, let's climb back on out of this thing, and we'll wrap up on the outside.
Yeah.
Cool. Come on. Good Lord. Hello, world. All right, guys, before we get out of here today, we're going to do a little gunner's drill. There's a SDKFC 222 over there that I think we've decided will make a fair target, so we'll see if we can knock it out. Let's do this thing. All right.
All right, crew ready?
Crew ready.
Gunner, armored car, HE, traverse left. Up. Steady. 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 On. Fire.
All right. Simple as that. It wasn't terrible.
That was good.
It was probably pretty bad, but hey, there we go. All right. I love it. All right, my friends, so there you go. Hopefully you've got a nice little idea of what the inside of this beautiful tank destroyer looks like. Gives you some context for the next time you're going to build one of these up. I'm going to go home and try and build up, as best I can, a reproduction of this exact Hellcat down in 1/35th scale. But Andrew, I want to thank you for taking us around today. It's been a treat. If you guys are at home and you're looking for some more fantastic content, check out the American Heritage Museum's channels over on YouTube and everywhere that videos are videos. These guys do a wonderful job exploring this stunning world-class collection here, and it's well worth your time to check out what these guys are working on. And hopefully we'll be back soon to do another one of these. Yeah. So let me know down in the comments below, guys, what you'd like to see us crawl around on next. And until next time, be well, happy building. Cheers.